So let's talk about divorce. First thing. All right. Well, you have longevity.
I think that your approach to life is the key to everything. And you have no expectations of sustainability. And I thought that was a very interesting thing because it's true. When I got married, my father wrote a check for my wedding, and it was the last check he was going to write. I think it was a $25,000 check, to pay for this lavish wedding that he was giving me. And as he's writing the check, you remember my father, he was not a spender, right? He was a frugal man. So he's writing this check and he looks at me square in the face night before my wedding. And he says, listen to me carefully. I want at least 5 years as a return on my investment.
Hey everyone, it's Lisa J here. Look who I have on the Mindset Reset with Lisa J. It's Caroline DePosada. Thank you for being our guest today, Caroline.
Thank you for having me.
We have just been chatting because we've known each other for so many decades. I met Caroline when she was a teenager at the National Speakers Association, and I was in my early 30s, maybe latter 20s, early 30s. And I think we just bonded right away with your father, your dad, and the relationship that I had with Joaquin DePosada, just such a special man. And so Caroline and I have been chatting before we press record, and it's just so juicy good. I'm like, we gotta just get into this. Let's just get into this. Tell me, what was one of your first memories of coming to the National Speakers Association as a teenager? I know you edited one of your dad's best-selling books when you were like 17, right? 18 years old. Wow.
I can't believe you remember that.
Oh gosh, yes. That's so impressive, Caroline. So you have been in this world for many decades.
My whole life.
Your whole life.
My whole life. The first seminar I ever attended with my father, I was 7.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been in this world my whole entire life, and I started attending Florida Speakers Association. Well, I started attending National Speakers Association when I was 13, and I went into the youth program. The first one was in Orlando in 1993.
Wow.
And then shortly thereafter, my father started taking me to the Florida Speaker Association meetings. So I would attend with him. It's that one Saturday a month.
Yep.
And the first time I was, before we press record, I was sharing that the first time that I saw you, you had this short hair, and you were speaking, and you were so articulate and eloquent, and you were this phenomenal speaker, and you were funny and feisty. And at the time, I had a belief that you really couldn't do the work that my father did, being a motivational speaker, and have a husband and a family and kids, and you couldn't do it as a woman. You couldn't be a mom and do this work. So I saw you speak, and I remember my father saying, well, now you have your model. Like, Lisa Jimenez does this, and you could do this if you wanted to, because that's your example right there. You could be a mom, and you could be a wife, and you could do this work.
So good. It's true. It's true. We can. And now with technology, even better, because then share the rest of the story.
You want me to share it? Tell all?
Tell all.
So you were my model at the time. And then I found out you got divorced, and I was like, it's over. My model has been quashed.
Yeah.
But, and I say that jokingly, but that was the reality I had for myself. And listen, Lisa, my parents, in between both of them, have been divorced 9 times. Yeah. So I wanted a different model. I wanted something different. I wanted to have a family with, I wanted that tradition and that formal, that traditional relationship, which, funny enough, by the time that I got married, I didn't even think was a possibility. I was like, I'm so going to end up divorced. Like, there's no way I'm ever going to get out of this unscathed. It's like with my background. So in my mind, I thought that was a reality. So I went to law school, and I became an attorney because I was like, I'm going to have a more traditional, formal trajectory, so to speak. I wanted to have that. I wanted stability. Really, is what I want. What I wanted was stability, but I didn't know then anything different. And then it's just funny. All these years later, you're still a role model for me. Because you still do now you're a role model in different ways, right? But it's like you still have circled back into my life and come back and come back and come back and come back and taught me so much about doing life your own way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is the truth. So let's talk about divorce. First thing. All right. Well, you have longevity. I mean, how long have you guys been married?
So I've been married 17 years.
17
years. And beautiful. I will tell you a funny story because. And I had this conversation, I had a walking session this morning with one of my clients, and he said, I think that your approach to life is the key to everything, and it's you have no expectations of sustainability. And I thought that was a very interesting thing because it's true. When I got married, my father wrote a check for my wedding, and it was the last check he was going to write. I think it was a $25,000 check, to pay for this lavish wedding that he was giving me. And as he's writing the check, you remember my father, he was not a spender, right? He was a frugal man. So he's writing this check and he looks at me square in the face night before my wedding and he says, listen to me carefully. I want at least 5 years as a return on my investment. Swear to God, he said that to me. Gosh. And I was like, okay, Dad. And I was like, I could do 5 years. I could be married for 5 years. So after I got married, we started having our kids. And from the day that I had my 5-year anniversary, every year on my anniversary after that, I would call my father and I would say, this is interest. And I've given you 3 grandchildren. So this is a massive return on your investment. Wow. And I did that every year until he died. Every year I'd go, Dad, this was a good investment. And he'd always say, it was a good investment. I did good.
I love that story. That is so Joaquin too. So just think about that, listener. So here's Caroline getting married, really even thinking to herself, this isn't sustainable. This isn't going to last. I've come from how many? 17 divorces?
9 divorces.
9 divorces between the 2 of your parents. Yeah. And then your role model, Lisa Jimenez, gets a divorce. Oh my God.
I'm like, let me try to be a lawyer. Maybe that'll work. Don't be a motivational speaker.
Yeah, right. So I can see why you said, no, I can't follow that passion in my heart to be a motivational speaker, to help others, because your highest value was family and marriage and sustainability and even, this beautiful safety that you've created in your marriage, this beautiful relationship. So let's talk about the difference between my marriage and your marriage. So our listeners can hear very clearly. When you follow your passion, it can happen that your passion shadows your husband or your wife. Make sure that doesn't happen, people, because that was my downfall. This passion could have been managed with a beautiful marriage that I had with Mark Jimenez. But I chose to allow this passion to overshadow my marriage. And all that takes is a check-in, right, Caroline?
Yeah.
I mean, tell people what you do, how much you love it, but it's a check-in to say, all right, it's never going to overshadow my family and my marriage and what really matters in this world. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, one thing I can say is I was crystal clear on what the priority for my life was when I began having children. And I made a lot of choices for that. And here's the thing, Lisa, at that time, that became my passion, if I'm being honest. I wasn't really thinking about my career. I wasn't thinking about it. Something happened to me when I had my first son where I just wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Yeah. That's what I wanted to do at that time.
And you were already a lawyer at this time, right?
I was a practicing lawyer and I was a public defender. And I didn't know it was going to happen. I was due, I'll never forget it. It was October 15th. It was my due date. I was 9 months pregnant and I was in trial. I didn't have my son till October 17th. He was 2 days late, but I was trying a case as a public defender on my due date. And I remember when I walked in with my belly out to here, and the state attorney was like, aren't you due today? Like, aren't you supposed to stop working? And I said, yes. And she said, what are you going to do after the baby's born? My response was, I'm going to get a nanny and come back to work. I mean, a lot of the things that happened in my life surprised me as they happened. When I held that child in my arms 2 days later, it was painfully obvious I was never coming back to work. Ever. And I don't know if it's because of my upbringing or because I long for that stability and that home life, or I'm not really sure what it was that led me down that path, but I remember just wanting to be a mom more than anything else. So I quit my job. We lived on one salary. Eventually, the worker being me couldn't stay away from the office. And I remember my law partner, my best friend from law school, called me one day and said, listen, Caro, you could work at my office like 1 day a week and make more money than you made at the public defender's office. Like, what are you doing? Right? So he kind of encouraged me to come to his office. And when I got to his office, he said, he was like, just help me. I don't know what I'm doing. And when I'm looking at all his stuff, he's like, I'm not, I was like, you don't need another lawyer. You need a bookkeeper. You need somebody to invoice your clients. And I had an accounting degree. So I actually started doing bookkeeping for him. And then I did it for other lawyers. And I kind of sustained myself my first couple of years as a mom being a bookkeeper, which is outrageous that I had this law degree and I was a bookkeeper, but my priority always was be home with my kids. And I got to do that. I was making 90 grand a year as a bookkeeper, and I was working at nights and in naps, and I was breastfeeding, and I was home with my kids and just doing my life the way that I wanted to do it. So it was worth it for me. And then eventually I went back to law and I was working, but it was always very strategic around this family dynamic that I had. And I think that's an important thing for listeners is, I think one of the issues that we've had with women in the workforce as of late is that we have this conception that just because we can, we should. And we feel guilty about making decisions that are different than other people's. So at the time, I was a lawyer, I had this degree, and people would say to me, what a waste of education for you to be bookkeeping, or what a waste of an education for you not to be practicing law. And I remember just saying, I went to law school to have the choice to practice law, but I also went to have the choice not to. And that's kind of how that was. So all that to say that I wanted to build my life around my family. However, I don't think you had this kind of support, to be honest with you. I don't remember you having this kind of support, but I did. When my father died and I got that bug and I got that calling of, this is your moment. You have to do this work that you were born to do, that you've always known that you have to do, that it has been. At that time, I was 35 years old. It was like, I knew that I had been, 35 years in the making to do this work, to do inspirational speaking and coaching and the work that I do now. When I made that decision and I got that calling and I brought it to my husband was like, go move mountains. I've got your back.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's why it worked.
That's why it worked.
And maybe had he not been that way, maybe the return on my dad's investment would have been different.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer.
That is a great question. Yeah, the inquiry of that. I'm sure it would have been very different. It is so true. Who we choose is vitally important. Yeah. So talk a little bit about that then. So, I miss your dad. Let's just say that right now. Oh, what a spark. What a firecracker. What fun. Just, I got to share this story. Joaquin, atheist. Lisa Jimenez.
Agnostic. Not atheist. Okay. Agnostic.
agnostic. And Lisa Jimenez, born again Christian. We were the best of friends. It was so beautiful to have conversations, definitely sparking conversations and intriguing conversations, and so much fun because there was incredible mutual love there. And I'll never forget being in the hospital days before your dad passed over. And all he kept saying to me, Caroline, is, I love you. 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 And isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah.
Just love.
Yeah. It's funny because my father taught me how to be a critical thinker my whole life. He was always question everything, be a critical thinker. And then he had this belief, that critical thinkers were people who, questioned things and looked for scientific evidence and scientific proof, which is what led him to the agnostic world. And magical thinkers were everybody else. And that was his approach. And interestingly, when he was getting ready to pass over, we had this conversation and he said to me, I'm so curious to know what our connection will be on the other side. I'm so curious to know. And I said, well, listen, if there's something on the other side, you gotta let me know. Like you gotta show up for me in some way or another. And I swear to you, Lisa, I feel the last 10 years have been almost him knocking on the door saying there's something on the other side. Because I see him everywhere. Yeah. And I wrote to him, I wrote a blog a few years ago for him. And I said, I'll always be a critical thinker, Dad. And now I'm a magical thinker too.
Oh,
and in many ways,
they can coexist.
And in many ways, I am a magical thinker because of him, not in spite of him. Because of everything I've learned after he died, because of the way that he just continues to show up for me. And with this concept of energy is neither created nor destroyed, and my father's energy was so strong, and it just remains the strong energy it always was. It's just changed in form.
That's beautiful. So true. So you are a proponent of quantum mechanics, it sounds like.
100.
It's so juicy good. Singularity. Like we could just go on and on today, but like, what's your favorite thing you've learned in the quantum mechanic world, the quantum physics world?
I think my favorite concept is that your future reality is already in existence. That your future reality is something that you can step into, that you can create as part of your reality, and that you are not defined by your current circumstances or by your current thought patterns. That just by changing the way you think, you can quantum leap into a different future. Is fascinating to me. And I'll tell you, when I hosted you on my YouTube channel and I interviewed you, I was blown away by all the research and all the information that you have in this department. I just blown away. Like, you blew me away. It was so wonderful to reconnect with you in this arena again all these years later.
Yes. That's my favorite too. It's like, what is reality? Reality is old news. It just happened a second ago. It just happened a second ago. It just happened a millisecond ago. It's old news. Who are we being now?
Yes.
And we can, like you said, step into, live into this dual reality, we could call it, this future possibility.
Yeah, I just never thought, I never could understand that concept before, because everything feels so tangible.
Yes.
Your circumstances feel so tangible, but when you start to live in the impossibility,
yes,
and then all of a sudden you start to see synchronicities, and you start to see evidence of that possibility while your circumstances are still what you thought they were, but now they're not. It's incredible.
It's incredible. And even psychology, neuroscience supports this quantum realm conversation we're having with the reticular activating system. So we have a filter system, right? We think 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And we would see and be aware of so many more if we didn't have this RAS, reticular activating system. It's a filter. We would go crazy if we were alert and aware of every little notion that's occurring in any second of our existence. So the brain is so beautifully made, it filters out what's not important. Well, who determines what's important? Our thoughts. We do. What we're thinking about. And so how cool to know, wow, just like if you bought a new car, you're going to see that car everywhere now. That's the reticular activating system in action. So when we start thinking about what we really want instead of what we don't want, thinking about our amazing husband who said yes to you, go climb mountains, go do it. I'm here for you. Let's make it happen together. Just focusing on that way of being and that man, that husband of yours, can actually create more of him showing up that way. So mind shift number 1 for our listeners. What are you thinking about right now? What are you focused on right now? If you're only focused on the problems that your business partner or your client or your spouse or yourself is dealing with right now, then you're going to attract more of that. And we know that in quantum mechanics, but we also know that in psychology and in neuroscience with this reticular activating system, your magical, scientifically proven filter system. So let's all elevate our thoughts even right now. I get it. That's difficult. I get it. She's a pain. I get it. You're struggling. I get it. You're worried. Fill in the blank. It's not helping you to focus and harness those thoughts and those feelings. What would help you is to elevate your thinking. Talk a little bit about that, how you have helped a client or even yourself, Caroline, elevate your thinking.
I'm going to tell you a big transformational shift that happened in my life. And it's an interesting one because despite the fact that I was raised in this personal development world, I didn't realize it at the time, but I had a lot of limiting beliefs. Why? Well, probably because I was the daughter of a man who was larger than life. I had this figure and he seemed so successful and he was doing all these amazing things. And when I started to step into this world, I very much felt like, I'm just the daughter of Joaquin DePosada. I didn't feel like my own person yet, right? And I had accomplishments. I had certain accomplishments, but those accomplishments in my brain felt so tiny compared to who my father was. And so I think I had all these, I was a little stuck in my ego. I had some limiting beliefs. I wanted to feel like I was at his level, but I was an amateur in this world. And it was like a weird, how do I step into his shoes, but be my own person, but et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in 2019, I went to a conference. And at that conference, and I was just talking about this because I just went to that conference again this September, and we're having this podcast in September. It's called the Summit of Greatness. And it's Lewis Howe's event. So I went to this conference, and after growing up my whole life at NSA and going to all these personal development things, I really didn't think there was anything for me to find at the Summit of Greatness. But I went because a bunch of my girlfriends were going, and I thought it'd be fun just to join them. But I was coming in kind of with that attitude of I have nothing to learn here. And then I heard Marissa Peer. I don't know if you've heard of her work.
Yes, of course.
But Marissa Peer spoke. And she said something that changed my life. She said, we think that because our brains are complicated, the solutions have to be complicated too. And at that time in my life, I had been overcomplicating everything. I was overcomplicating what I was going to do for a living, how I was going to transition into this world, what was I going to speak on, who was I? How was I going to be the daughter of this man, but my own person? Overcomplicating everything in my business. As a lawyer, questioning and critical thinking, and I made everything complicated. And when she said that to me, she planted a seed in my brain of maybe it doesn't have to be so complicated. So she caught my attention with that one sentence. And then she proceeded to say that there's so much power in affirmations because your subconscious does not filter between truth and lies. So if you say something to your subconscious accepts it for what it is. And she gave
objective.
Right. So she gave examples. So she gave an example of like how, you're on a diet and you go to a party and then there's a pizza and a salad and you're looking, and there's two ways to approach it, right? You can come in, you're like, oh my God, that pizza smells delicious. It looks delicious, but I have to have a salad because I'm so overweight and I have to lose weight and I have to eat the salad. And it's like this torturous thing. And she says, your subconscious wants to protect you, so it's going to crave the pizza. It desperately wants the pizza. But if you come into the party and you say, that pizza looks all right, but it doesn't look as good as that salad. Yeah. That salad looks so fresh and refreshing and oh my God, and I love how I can nourish it. When I'm 90, I'll have pizza, but right now, I want that salad. Says your subconscious is going to immediately start to look at that salad differently. So she used that as an example. And sitting next to me was my girlfriend, Betsy. And Betsy was all about affirmations. And we'd run a marathon together. And I remember her coming to the runs and she'd say, I love running and I love waking up in the mornings. And I knew that this was all not true because I know she's not a morning person. And I know she doesn't like... And she'd be like, you have to use affirmations. And I used to look at her and think, like, this is a crock of crap. Like, this is not, this does not work. So I thought she was full of it. But when this Marissa Peer says that one sentence, she changed my reality. And then I said, well, what if I tried? What if I tried to think about life simply? What if I tried using affirmations? So I came home in 2019 and I began the process. And every day I would write, I am a great coach. I am wise. I'm confident. I am my own person. I am, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I just started to speak into existence the person I wanted to become.
Yeah, beautiful.
This is simple. I would write things like that. This is simple. This doesn't have to be complicated. Well, Lisa, I went to the Summit of Greatness in 2024, 5 years later, and I'm talking to my friend Betsy at the event, and she says to me, I don't think I've told you this, but you know what your superpower is? I said, what? She said, how simple you make everything.
Wow.
And I didn't even realize that I had updated my identity yet. I hadn't even gotten the memo. She says, on your podcast, every time you share concepts, the way you talk to your coaching clients, you get these real life stories and you simplify them and you give us actionable, practical, simple ways to live a life of bliss. And that's your superpower. And in that moment, it was a full circle moment. And I was like, it's those damn affirmations. From 5 years ago.
The subconscious mind is so objective. It doesn't know the difference between a made-up thought and reality. It will believe the made-up thought. I call it Bailey. That's our Bailey. And we can program Bailey. How to show up in the world, what to think, how to move in the world.
Why Bailey?
Because I was walking Balboa Island several years ago when I was creating my Mindset Reset formula. And I saw a dog, and the dog's name was Bailey, playing with a topiary dog, a fake dog. And Bailey, the real dog, thought the topiary was a real dog. And it was responding to this fake dog and licking it and laughing with it like dogs do, barking with it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the image of the subconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between a fake dog and a real dog. So Bailey is our subconscious mind, and it wants to obey us. It wants to do whatever we want. So we have to speak to the subconscious mind. We have to preach to the subconscious mind. Stop just listening to your subconscious mind. That's what most people do, Caroline. And that's the biggest problem with entrepreneurs and business leaders is they listen too much to themselves. They need to start speaking to themselves. They need to start preaching to themselves. They need to start speaking life over their dreams, over their tasks, over their to-do list, over like you did.
Amen. Amen. And what's interesting is they listen to themselves and they accept every thought that comes through their mind as truth. Yeah. They just accept the thoughts as true instead of saying, that's just a thought. And I get to choose if that thought is true or not.
Exactly.
It's just such a... Yeah. But unless, I think one of the most powerful ways to influence others is to live in breakthrough. You live in transformation. You live in breakthrough. So now, 5 years later, I'm so grateful that I was stuck in my ego, that I had limiting beliefs, that I didn't know any better. I'm so grateful for that experience because that allowed a breakthrough. And then once I could understand it, I could teach it.
Yeah. Beautiful. And you understood it because you lived it personally. On the other side of every breakdown is a breakthrough. You had the breakdown, you did the inner work, and then you had the breakthrough. And then you got to see that process and say, I did it, I can teach others to do it as well.
Right, right. And then some of my clients get upset when they get upset at themselves for having a negative thought. And I think this is such an important thing for your audience is to remember there's nature and there's nurture. Don't judge yourself for the nature, the animal instinct, the thought that just intrudes into your brain. Judge yourself for how you nurture that thought. Are you going to accept it or reject it? Are you going to shelf it? Are you going to reframe it? Are you going to stop, take a break, think about it and say, I'm going to come back to this? Are you going to say, listen, thought, you can be a passenger, but you can't drive the wheel. You can't take the wheel of this ride we're taking in, right? So nurture, decide how you're going to nurture the things that come to you and judge yourself on that, but not on your nature, because we all have instinctual human nature to have fear, to have worry, to get angry, to be jealous, to have an ego.
We have an amygdala in our brain, and it is the fear sensor. It is the fear factor. It's a reality, and it's there to protect us. But you're right. We judge our own human condition too much. That's step number 1 in my mindset reset formula, Carolina, is there's nothing wrong here because the brain is wired to find a problem. The brain is wired to keep you safe. The brain exists to be a solution, to find a problem so that you can find a solution. If that's how it's wired, then no wonder we're all so negatively prone, because our brain is negatively prone. It has to be to keep us safe. It's never going to change. Okay, it's never going to change. So we have to change on how we manage our brain and our thoughts. It's just like, oops, there it is. There's a negative thought. Oops, there it is. There's nothing wrong here. That's just the way the brain's wired. But and here we go. Speak life over yourself. Speak truth over yourself. Start preaching to yourself. That's maybe what I'm thinking right now, that I'm not enough, that client's going to say no, or that fill in the blank. But
and then when you can combine that with possibility. Well, that's what I'm thinking right now. But what about future me? What about the higher version of me? What about the quantum field of me? What if I could tap into that? If I knew the answer, what would that answer be? If I knew how would it be? Like that, it's so exciting.
Beautiful. Great questions to ask ourselves. So did you guys get that? That was a beautiful tip right there. And not only retraining the brain, but right now seeing a result immediately in how you are holding yourself, your own posture. Instead of focusing on the negative, because that's how the brain is wired, you can speak life and preach to yourself, to your thoughts, and then they will elevate naturally. Could you talk a little bit about why you chose mindset coach? You're a life coach. Why you chose mindset, wellness, and relationship?
Because I think
areas of expertise.
Yeah, I think those are the 3 pillars that help you create a life that sparks bliss. I think when you have your mindset in order, when you live a life of wellness, and when I mean wellness, I mean a wellness that comes from within. A life where you have a holistic wellness approach, and a life where your relationships are solid, you find bliss everywhere. So this is a concept I've been exploring for a long time. There's something that was always happening to me. I would have these sparks of bliss, like these moments of where I just feel this innate, unfiltered joy, ecstatic, coming out of my life. And I'm like, and the way that I described it is like a spark of bliss. It's like this moment of bliss. And I used to say, if I could bottle this up in a pill and give it to people, I would make millions. Billions, right? Like if I could just give it to you in the form of a pill. And then I thought, but what is it that gives you that? And what I've realized is living a life of alignment, a life where you are constantly upgrading and up-leveling your mindset, your wellness, and your relationships. When you're nurturing those things, it's not that you are finding bliss somewhere else, or you are, achieving bliss. It's not an achievement. It's that when you live a life of alignment, you see it. It's already within you. You learn to listen for it. You learn to identify it. You bring it into your realm of consciousness. You bring it into your reality. So I've dedicated my life at teaching people how to find that within their own circumstances, within their own puzzle of their life. They don't have to buy the house and the key, buy the big boat and the house in Bali and all these things to find their bliss. It's not something it's not tangible that if you finally get the car or the $1 million or the perfect husband or the house in Bali, you're going to find bliss. It's that you are on the path. You're pursuing a path of alignment, and along the path, you are constantly rewarded with sparks of bliss.
Yes. I love it. It brings the word embodiment. You are embodying that alignment.
And integrating. Yes.
Integrating. Yeah.
Yes. You're right. You're an embodiment. So, for example, I have a client of mine. She wanted to lose weight. And she came to me because I do mindset, wellness, and relationships. Naturally, she came to me because she wanted to lose weight. But here's the thing. She had been losing weight. She was taking Ozempic. And she was doing all these crash diets. And then she would lose 30 pounds. But then she'd gain it right back as soon as she got off the medication. And she was in this constant hamster wheel of gain and lose. But really, her life wasn't in alignment. So although she came to me with this pretext of losing weight, what she discovered was a life of wellness. Eating well because it nurtures your body. Exercising because it makes you feel good. Finding the magic in your marriage, in intimacy, in your children. Learning how to enjoy the rituals of your life. And then the weight comes off.
Yeah.
Like the weight is secondary. It's a consequence of the life you live. It's a consequence of the world you create. And in that process, she found her self-worth. She found her joy. She found alignment. And then now she's finding sparks of bliss everywhere. She sees the magic everywhere. She can't escape it. It's like her eyes opened and that's it. You can't turn the faucet off.
That's wonderful. So give our listeners 1, 2, or 3 little tips. What can they do right now around this conversation of embodying this alignment of mindset, wellness, and relationship? What can they do today, Caroline?
Take inventory of what is already working in your life. And when you close your eyes and you think about your best life, you already know the answers. If I were to tell you right now, create a vision of what you want your life to look like, people will close their eyes and they'll be like, I want to be fit. I want to be strong. I want to have energy. I want to wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and just love who I see. And when you take inventory of what already you have in that reality and what is in your possibility, all of a sudden, all those superficial things start to become less important. And you start to realize, well, I already have this. I already have this part of me. I'm already doing this. Now I just have to do more of it. Or I have to be more intentional about it. Or I have to start letting go of some of the things that rob me of that reality.
I love that idea, because here it is. When we get in that state, you're speaking about it as a state. This is a state. To embody this alignment is a state. Okay, here it is. We start attracting the home in Bali. We start attracting the spouse that's going to continue that spark. That's quantum mechanics, because we're a walking, talking vessel of that energy.
Yes.
So it really does start with just sitting with yourself and taking inventory. What's working in my life right now? What am I grateful for right now? What's working for me? What's working in my way of being right now? And then focusing on that list, focusing on that inventory. And is that just the magic spark that actually starts attracting the other things that you're telling people? Don't focus on that too much. It's not about the house in Bali. It's about this alignment you're talking about. And then the house in Bali comes.
And why is because they say you draw that by becoming that. You draw it by becoming it. When you chase it, that energy is a completely different energy. It's an energy of scarcity. It's an energy of lack. But when you embody, when you become, maybe it's not even the house in Bali, but maybe all of a sudden it's abundance in ways that you didn't know were possible, that were already within your life. And then the third tip is action. Intentional action. So my process is all about setting intentions, living with intention, stepping into that intention. So are your habits, are your daily routines, are your rituals, are your choices aligned with a higher version of yourself? If you had to ask yourself the question, is this what the highest version of Lisa would do? Would the answer be yes?
That's good.
Or would the answer be no? And if you have the choice between sitting in front of the couch and eating potato chips or going to the gym, what would the highest version of Lisa choose?
Okay, can I give you a story? This just happened to me last week. So what would the highest version of myself do when I had a breakdown with a conversation with a friend? And I didn't want to call this person back and clean it up. I didn't want to, Caroline. I didn't want to, because it was their fault. It was their fault. But what would the highest version of Lisa do? The highest version of me would call and say, it's not okay that I made you angry. I'm sorry. Sometimes I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. Let's just clean it up, because I can't not have you in my day today. And this person completely said, of course, yes, I'm sorry, I overreacted, and it was completely dissolved. But that was the highest version of Lisa. That really wasn't Lisa. I wanted to stay mad.
Of course, that was a proactive, intentional, willing to make the hard choice Lisa. And here's what happens. That Lisa trusts that one of two things is going to happen. Either one, her friend is going to respond and her friend is going to just, come around and things are going to get better because of that decision. Or two, that friend wasn't meant to be in her life. Mm-hmm. And if she wasn't meant to be in her life, then Lisa would know that, because Lisa made the difficult decision, because Lisa was proactive, because Lisa picked up the phone call, because Lisa didn't leave it to chance and magic, and she wasn't a victim of her circumstances and let other people decide what Lisa's actions should be.
That's good. That is so good. Wow.
So you took inventory of your life. That relationship in your life matters. That's taking inventory of what matters most, what is important. That relationship is important. You trust that life is rigged in your favor. And if she's going to stay, or she or he is going to stay in your life, it's for the right reasons. And if not,
it was a he.
And if it's a he, the universe is going to take him away because he's not meant to be there. And then you take action with intention in what you know is the highest version of yourself, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it means you're tapping into your resilience, even if it means you're being confrontational when every bone in your body wants to avoid that.
Mm-hmm. Wow. If all of our listeners would just take that on right now, Caro, that's it. I love those 3 steps. Number 1, take inventory. What is working? Trust. Build your trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in others. Trust in the principles of manifestation, the principles of business, which I want to talk to you as we close out. I want to hear about marketing, the principles of marketing, the principles of sales. And then the third one, what would my highest version of myself do in this moment? What would the highest version of myself say on this sales call, or in this breakdown, or in this breakthrough? What would the highest version of me do when I don't want to go to the gym? What would the highest version of Lisa do? So and I love that vision too of the salad bar. I got pizza there and I got salad bar there. Why not tell myself, like we said before, I'm going to just tell myself, oh my God, look at that fresh salad. The vegetables look amazing. The nuts I could put on that, the sunflower seeds, it's so fresh. I'm going to feel so good after I eat that. It looks so inviting. Look at the different colors of vegetables, the reds and greens and purples. And this is just such a mind game that we could play with ourselves. And it works.
It works. It works. My mother-in-law, is in phenomenal shape. She's 67 years old and she looks like she is 45. She's in phenomenal shape. And I always laugh because she doesn't realize that she's doing this intuitively, but it's it's coaching. She just doesn't realize it. Sometimes we do these things naturally. We don't know what we're doing, but it works. We were at an event and they ordered these little pizzas, and they ordered all these little appetizers, and it was like a beach resort, and it was all on the table. And she walks into the event, and the food is already on the table, and she says, "Oh, pizza!" And you could see it in her face that she was attracted to the pizza. But what came next was fascinating. She sits down and she's like, I don't know that I can eat that pizza because whenever I eat pizza, it doesn't sit well with my stomach.
Yeah.
And I never feel so good about myself whenever I eat pizza. And I don't know. I look at that pizza and I just feel like then I'm going to get lethargic. And she was talking herself out loud out of the pizza. And I could see her doing it, but I know what she's doing, but she doesn't know what she's doing. So then I had ordered a burger with vegetables, and I took the bun off and I had the burger with the vegetables, protein and vegetables. And she sees the vegetables come out and she says, I always feel better when I eat vegetables. The vegetables are so light. I just feel very light. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, if this woman could rub off on all the other people, because everybody else just walks by and they're like, oh, pizza, eat, they don't even consider it. But she has a conversation with herself over and over, reinforcing to herself.
Let's bring that up again then. So here's a good mindset reset shift for our audience is don't just listen to your thoughts. Don't just listen to your feelings. Don't just listen to your cravings. Speak over them. Like preach to
Over
yourself,
them.
speak over them, preach to yourself, preach to yourself what you
Yeah.
want, what you know to be true, what you can trust in, how you're going to feel after you eat that healthy meal.
And I'm going to tell you what my husband has taught me. And this is beautiful. And my husband has moved mountains in his life. He has transformed his life in the most miraculous ways. Has stepped into this higher version of himself. And he always says, this is the choice I have to make. I'm sorry, the choice that he's making, right? He says, this is the price of admission for the movie I want to be a part of.
Wow.
So if you're going to the movie theater and you want to walk in and you want to watch that movie and you want to be the hero of that movie, you got to buy your ticket. What is the price of admission for the movie you want to be in? That's quantum physics. That's leaping into possibility. Are you willing to pay the price of admission for the movie that you want for your life? And your movie doesn't have to look anything like my movie. Your movie.
I hear a resounding yes from our audience. Okay, before I let you go, we have just a few minutes left. I want to talk a little bit about marketing because you and I are both coaches. Your area of expertise is mindset, wellness, and relationship. My area of expertise is all mindset and how you apply that to business to grow your business. So what marketing tips can you give our audience? And I'll share a couple of mine. Share what you're launching in. If people give you a 5-star review or a comment on your podcast, what they get. Like, that's a brilliant idea, Carol.
Oh, thank you. Well, so for this week, I'm doing a raffle in which if you leave a review on my podcast, which is called Blissin' Up. So it's like listen up, but blissin' up.
Listen up.
Blissin' Up. If you leave a review on my podcast, you will enter a raffle for one of 3 prizes. And the 3 prizes are, one is free access to my 5-day mimic fast. I host a fast called Rejuva Fast. I believe you did it, Lisa, if I'm not mistaken.
The fast.
It's a 5-day fast, and I host it every quarter. I've partnered up with a doctor to, he's the health coach, the scientist behind the fasting experience, and I'm the life coach. And really what it is, it's a fasting experience to give you a small, big win. It's 5 days, but the transformation gives you so much clarity. It lets you tap into that spark of bliss because you've done something that's really hard and really transformational. And at the end of it, it's like you climbed a mountain, and we all need those small, big wins. So you can get access to that. Another prize is there's a personal development event here in Miami that I am attending. It's my friend Luli B's event. It's called Spark. And I have a VIP table, and I'm offering 1 seat at that table. And then the third prize is a 1-hour coaching session with me, which is kind of exciting because right now I don't do individual coaching sessions. If you work with me, it's for 6 months. So for somebody that wanted to just have 1 session, this would be a great way to do it. You could have 1 session. By doing this review, you could enter the raffle and maybe you'll win the session.
Okay, I love it. I heard 3 marketing ideas there. Number 1, the actual idea that you just shared. So whoever gives you this review on your podcast can enter to win one of those 3 prizes. The second thing is you partnered with a doctor. You're the mindset coach. He has the proven nutritional formula. The third thing is you're doing a booth at the Miami event. You have a booth. So you're actually taking the time and the investment to have a booth and to show and share who you are as a mindset coach. So what else? There's 3 ideas. Let's give our audience maybe 2 more marketing ideas on how to market their business.
So to me, the best marketing idea that I have come up with in the last few years is do things that are fun and exciting for you. Because if you're having fun and you're excited about something, that energy is contagious. Be contagious. So that idea is any idea. I'll give you another example. I had an idea that I wanted to do a sunrise walk to offer my community an opportunity to walk with me, because I do one-on-one coaching sessions for 6 months. But that if you live in California, then it's a Zoom session. But if you live in Miami, it's a walking session. So I said, well, I can do a walking group session, sunrise walk. I love to see the sunrise, and I will invite people to come, and then they can walk with me. They can coach with me as we walk. They can, coach with each other, and then they can see the sunrise. So I thought that would be fun. I would do that on my own by myself. So I don't care if anybody signs up or not, because I would do it alone. Well, guess what, Lisa? I did it, and 30 people signed up.
Wow.
And 3 people hired me for one-on-one coaching from that walk.
Yeah. Wow. Fantastic. Yeah.
Right? So, and then I did this, and this was I'm telling you, I wasn't kidding when I said it changed my life. I did a bookmark. Ooh. Even when you don't see the sunrise, remember the sun is always there, and so is your bliss. Right? So it was a sunrise walk, and I created a bookmark with a little sunrise quote, and I have my core principles in the back and a QR code to schedule a consult with me. So at the end of the walk, I gave everybody a bookmark. I did that because I thought it was fun and exciting and something cool to do and different. Not because I had to, not because it was strategic or because I was following some formula. I think that what we need more in this life is to do things that we're excited about, so that people want to be excited with us.
It is contagious.
Your mastermind retreat. Why do you do the mastermind retreats that you do?
Well, because I love taking people to luxurious settings and watching their mouths drop, and they're like little kids at Disneyland. They really are. They're like little kids on their birthday morning. And these are grown adults that own global companies and are business leaders. And they just come to this 6 days so open-minded and blown away by the beauty and the culture of whatever country we chose. And they can learn my mindset reset formula faster. They can integrate it faster. They can memorize it faster, because I've taken them away to something so luxurious, so beautiful, so out of the norm. That's why I just love to see this radical, quick change in people under those type of luxurious settings.
But do you see the excitement you have there? Imagine now that we were talking to somebody else and we said, well, all you need to do for your business to market your business and make a lot of money is host luxurious retreats in other countries. And the person would be like, what country do I go to? Where would I find such a luxurious venue? How much will it cost me? Do I have to plan an itinerary? I hate being with people for 5 days in an immersive experience. Would that be a good marketing tactic for somebody else?
Very good point. Yeah, it truly does. It is. We started this podcast with alignment, and that's what you're all about. And that really is truly aligned with who I am, what my love language is. Everybody gets a gift every single day. They just get experiences that they would never have ever have given themselves. I get to gift that to people. And
you see, listen to the language. I get to give that to people.
Yeah.
That's why it works for you. That's my marketing advice. I am not a business strategist, but what has made me money in my life and what has given me access to so much community, because I have a large community, what has given me access to so many people that trust me and like to work with me and continue to come to my events, is that I do things that I have fun with. And because I'm having fun and I'm having a spark of bliss, they want a piece of that, because everybody wants to be part of something exciting.
Beautiful. I just love you. Thank you for being on this show. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for saying yes when you were 35 years old, to say, okay, yes, I'm a lawyer. Yes, I'm a mom. Yes, I'm a wife. And I'm going after this dream of being a transformational coach, an author of books, a world changer. And that's who you are. Caro, that's who you are, Caroline DePosada.
Well, thank you for being my one of my earliest role models and for teaching me how to live life on your own terms. Because if I had to say something about Lisa is no matter what you've been through, you have lived life on your own terms. You've enjoyed life. You just embrace the beauty and the magic of this world. I've seen you with your children. I've seen you in your, as you've embraced your new marriage. I've seen you embrace new businesses, write books, just do all the things, play the ukulele. I've seen you do it all. And it's inspiring and it's refreshing. So I've been very lucky that my dad gave me gifts like you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's it, people. Where you're going to see Caro's information in the show notes below. Go check out her podcast show, Bliss It Up, and you will be able to find out everything you want to know about Caro in the notes below. Thank you again, my friend, for being on the show. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.